I'm Tanya Fox, and you're listening to Fox Talks Business Podcast. I started my career in the corporate world, but always played to my own tune and loved to think outside of the box. This didn't always serve me well with the bosses, so I made the decision to become an entrepreneur. And that little seed of entrepreneurial curiosity continued to grow as I branched out into retail, service, and franchise businesses. Now, I have been fortunate to have amazing successes in the last 2 decades, but they did not come without some really big failures and even bigger lessons learned. And that's why I started this podcast, not just to share the failures, but to show you how you can turn every failure into a success. We're going to hear from some amazing humans from around the world that are going to share their stories of the good, the bad, and the motivational entrepreneurial life has to offer. After all, life is too short to make all of the mistakes yourself, so why not learn from each other? And of course, we're going to have some fun, because as I always say, well, you know what? I'll tell you that at the end of the episode. Hello, Foxy listeners. Welcome to the episode today. My guest, I am really excited for because we are going to be talking about topics that are near and dear to my heart that you might be kind of going, I really don't want to talk about money and financing and business and all that other stuff, but it's important and we need to talk about it. And I know from the beginning of our conversation that this is going to be a fun one to have because I've already been having fun with her. So Teresa, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very much excited to visit with you today.
So before we start jumping into all the topics that we were kind of discussing off air, tell our listeners a little bit about you and your background.
Mm-hmm. So I started out, I guess, about 30 years ago, and I am a CPA. I went into public accounting and specialized in tax, corporate and partnership taxation. Did that for about 7 or 8 years, had over 300 clients that I managed. And I think that the thing I enjoyed about it the most was tax planning. However, I got to the point where I couldn't see myself doing taxes the rest of my life. So, I
know that feeling.
So I decided, okay, it's time for a change. And so I dove off headfirst into the industry and talk about a complete 360. The first company I went to work for was a full service ad agency, advertising and marketing agency. And that was the best experience, of my life to that point. Worked there 10 years, greatly enjoyed it. They did their own broadcasting, their own writing, copywriting, paper, print, media, everything. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And ever since then, I've been in the corporate world, just working my way up that corporate ladder like everybody else. And I worked for a few different companies, multiple different industries, all the way up to multi-million, billion-dollar SaaS companies, fintech companies in the Houston, Austin area. And I guess here just recently last year, I just woke up one day and I just wasn't passionate anymore about what I was doing. It wasn't motivating to me. There wasn't as much fulfillment as I had been getting while I was climbing the corporate ladder. Right. And so after some reflection, I looked back and I was like, the times that I enjoyed it the most and I had the most passion, the most drive, the most excitement was when I was working for those smaller businesses, and helping them grow or reach whatever goals they were trying to reach, whatever it was, the challenge, in that. That's what I enjoyed the most. And so I thought, I'm going to go back, to what was meaningful and what had a purpose. So I started my own, it's a fractional CFO practice. Started this last year and I'm loving it. I am enjoying it so much more. I get up in the morning to go to work. I'm motivated. I'm excited about what I'm doing that day. And podcasting has become a part of that. I used to be scared of public speaking and now I love it. I love to talk about what I do and who I'm talking to about business matters or, whatever. So that's kind of how I arrived at where I am today.
Well, and
it's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is because of your, your vast experience and stuff like that. I think it helps so much. And I see so much these days because I came from an accounting background as well
Mhm.
and kind of left that field. And I see so much in the world today, people kind of coaching. And I've taken courses and I'm like, y'all, it's not just about post-it notes on a wall and dreaming. Like there's a lot more
Mhm.
shit involved to make this stuff
Oh,
happen,
definitely.
right? And so that's kind of been one of the things that's my goal is like, yeah, I mean, all of that stuff is really great, but just because you do it once doesn't mean you can do it again, right? Like, and so that's kind of been sort of my goal is to help sort of get people to understand that there's a lot more to dreaming than just closing your eyes and hoping
That's right.
that it's all going to work out. So let's start off with talking about sort of some of the five main challenges that you have seen that most business owners kind of go through. Because I think a lot of these days we're seeing more and more entrepreneurs that are like you, right? That started off in the corporate world, sort of lived, in that, and then just kind of went, you know what, I kind of want to do my own thing. So what do
Mhm.
you see as sort of the most common challenges?
Right. This is actually my second go around at being self-employed or having my own business. I did it once when I was in my 20s after I had children, and I thought that would be a great fit, to have my own tax practice, work from home, and take care of kids. And I couldn't have been more wrong. That was the hardest route to go. I learned the hard way, but I did gain from that experience, a lot. I learned what the challenges were, and I'm seeing them. I see them in all the small businesses, and the main reason being is because in small businesses you have a single owner, right? And that owner, we all know, wears all the hats in the business. For every area of the business, they're having to manage and take care of everything in the business. And so I think, the first and foremost challenge that small business owners face is that business 100% relies on that owner. If
Mhm.
that owner ever steps out, goes on vacation, gets sick, whatever it is, there's potential for the business to fall apart because that business is all about that owner. And so that's a risk of, for the business, obviously. And it's obviously stressful,
Yeah.
and wearing on the business owner to try to handle every aspect of the business. They typically spend their days putting out fires, or in the weeds of the business. Basically working in the business instead of on the business. So the business never, grows or moves and after a while it just becomes overwhelming, to a lot of
Yeah.
business owners. And I think the second thing is that comes to mind is there's what I term as a catch 22 with a lot of small business owners. And what I mean by that is a lot of business owners will tell you, I need money to grow my business. And then they'll turn around and tell you, but I need to grow my business to get more money.
Right.
How do you
I
do
need to,
that?
yeah, I want to spend on stuff, but I need clients. But to get the clients, I need to spend money.
I
But to
need
get the
money.
money, I need the clients. Right.
That's right. That's
That
exactly
little
right. And
tornado of business entrepreneurship.
yes. And so then they're, baffled as to what to do, what direction to go. And there's really only three ways to get money, in your business. And that's you take on debt. So you borrow money, or some business owners use their credit cards, whatever it is, and you can get money that way. Or there's equity infusion, whereby the owners will put capital, invest in their company. So they put money in their company, maybe out of their savings or wherever it comes from. But the third way is through the operations of your business. You actually, and that's the best way to get money out of your business is to manage the operations and get it from the operations. Um, so that's where you can get the money. And I focus on helping small business owners generate that cash out of operations, the operations of their business. But so maybe like the third thing that comes to mind with small business owners is I think they have a hard time knowing what's working and what's not working in their business.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is it's difficult for the typical business owner to be able to read and understand their financials, right? Most of them, can't and most of them don't even want to look at financials, to be honest. Like they get up in the morning, check their cash balance, it's positive. Oh, I'm good to go. And
Yeah.
off to work they go. That's the extent of their financial management. So, and let's face it, financial statements weren't designed for the business owner. They're not management reports. They're reporting used for and by, accountants, CPAs, tax filing. So it makes sense that they can't look at a set of financials and read the story and see what's working in their business and what's not. Every set of financials tell a story. And if you know how to read them, you can tell exactly what's happening, what's going on in your business. So I think that's another challenge they face. And then I think maybe the fourth one would be what I see a lot with many small business owners is, they're afraid, they're stressed, they're overwhelmed. A lot of them, that's their single source of income. Their family relies on that. And that is stressful. You want to have a successful business and you don't want to fail. Nobody wants to fail in business and then have to go back to a W-2 job, right? You left the W-2 job for a reason. You want more freedom. You want to do what you enjoy doing. Most small business owners go in to business because they're good at something. They're good at a craft, or they have a great service, or whatever it is. So I think it's stressful and overwhelming, and a lot of them are afraid of failure. They don't want to fail. And then the last thing that I see is a challenge with small business owners is most of them have good intentions. They go into business because they want to make money, obviously, but they go into business because they have goals, they have dreams, personal goals, personal business goals, dreams, and they want to carry those out but what happens is they don't know how to do it. Like they don't know what needs to happen and what do they need to do to reach those goals. They have visions and goals for their business, but they don't know how to get there. And I think that's another challenge that they face. So those are probably the main, challenges that I see with most small business owners.
And I love what you said, like, when you were talking about the number 3 one of, reading statements, this is something that I think comes with a lot of shame. And I see it all the time of people going, oh, no, like, it's okay, I know how to. And, you point out a couple of things because, again, I have that background, so I understand what story they're trying to tell. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that was what I was supposed to look at. And there's a lot of shame that's like around that. But the truth of the matter is nobody really teaches you this. And like you, I went to school to get an accounting degree, and I learned more just being out there and realizing that, yeah, the statements are all the same, but the story is sometimes different when you get the background of it, when you understand kind of what's going on, and every industry is kind of a little bit different, and sort of each person is different in how they sort of deal with stuff, what they're willing to give up. So I think it's important, and I hope all of our listeners understand that this isn't something that you should just know how to do. This is a learned skill. And that whoever you have, whether it's you working for you or, somebody who's doing your books, to be okay with asking those questions of saying, can you please explain this to me? Because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We do it to doctors, but we never do it to our accountants and go, what? What are you talking about? Like it's, we feel like we need to be like, yes, no, as a business owner, I totally understand what
That's
this chart
exactly
means.
right. Yes, that's exactly right. I see that a lot, and it's sad, really, because there's no reason not to ask. You never lose anything by asking, and you have everything to gain. And one of the things that I really pride myself on and what I really like to do is I like to educate, the clients, my employees, whoever I'm working with, do some education, as you go. And it just betters everything, and it builds everybody up the more you know, right? And I try to make it simple. Also, like I have clients, I have picked up new clients that literally have told me they have a great business. They're generating revenues. They've got a hot product or service, whatever it is. And because they're doing so well, they have flat out told me, I never look at my financials. But I know somebody needs to look at them. They at
Yeah.
least know that. And I'm like, you're very smart and you're very wise. Because I tell a lot of business owners, utilize your resources,
Mm-hmm.
and surround yourself with experts. If financials and money matters are not your thing and you don't want to know them or learn them, you still need to have somebody managing that for your business. It's critical. So hire somebody that knows how to do it, invest in that. It's a worthwhile investment for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, this is an important thing for, for people for it to really sink into people, because I do that too. It's like it's like a gold mine to me when someone's like, oh yeah, no, I don't look at that. I mean, we're doing really good. I don't need to look at them. And I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, there's so much money there. There's
That's
just
right.
so much money being wasted there. Like, I'm going to find you so much. And I know, like, I'm like, put the cape on me now. I'm going to feel like a superhero to you. But we see this so often, right? Like people, when you're really struggling and when you're kind of like dollar to dollar, you're really paying attention to every single thing. But when you sort of get that relief of your business is doing really well, the bills come in, you're able to pay them, you kind of sit back and go, meh, and you don't look at things as, and this is both in your business and your personal life. You kind of sit back and you're like, I don't really need to pay attention to it. I'm telling you, I'm like, say if it's cheap or whatever, but I'll be the person who will be like, I'm canceling my membership because being a new member is cheaper. Right? Like I'm one of those people. But so I think it's important, and it is something that I know a lot of people like roll their eyes, and it hurts in the depths of their soul to sit down and have a conversation about money. But this is how you're going to get all those goals that you want to get, because it doesn't matter how good your business is if you don't understand what those numbers are talking about.
That's exactly right. And I think when I left the corporate world and came in to do what I'm doing, I basically took 25 years of experience and I condensed it down into a system. I have a process or a system that makes it accessible and affordable for small business owners. And that's the fractional part of it. But what I've also learned to do is when I'm working with my clients, I make it very simple. To show them and for them to be able to see, what's working in your business, what's not, and here's the actions or that we need to take, or corrective actions that we need to take to get back on track or get on track to reaching our goals. And I do that through a scoreboard. I just have a simple scoreboard I show them that makes it simple to understand and to see. It's a visual, if you will. So I don't really go over financials or look at the financials with the client unless they want to look at them, of course, then I will do that. But I try to keep it simple. And most owners appreciate that simple visual, what's going on in their business.
Well, and the other one that I wanted to talk about was in number two, when you were talking a lot about like looking at your operations for, generating that flow. And I think we hear this a lot, but that's kind of where the sentence ends. And then people are like,
Hmm.
I don't know
Yeah.
what that
Now
means.
what?
Because again, now they're like looking at a piece of paper and they're like, to do what? I don't
Right.
like, right? Because again, they're stuck in that mindset of like, no, like there's nothing there. So
Hmm.
can we, dive into that a little bit more, give some examples of where people can,
Hmm.
sort of look for that?
Of course. So I always say, it's not so much what you make, but what you keep that matters. And here's what that means. There's basically, a lot of people don't know this, but there's basically 16 drivers that control your cash flow. And what matters the most is your cash flow. So I'm going to back up here for a minute, but cash flow, a lot of people confuse like profits with cash. They think, oh, I'm profitable, I'm making money, and they're focused on, from a financial perspective, the income statement. Well, that's not necessarily true. There are other drivers, if you will, or parts of this that affect the cash flow that are not as easily visible. And some examples of those are, timing differences between your receivables and your payables. Like when you're collecting money from your customers, if they're on extended payment terms or you're not managing that and you're collecting money 60, 90 days late, but you have vendor payments, right, that you need to pay your vendors, which is cash out the door. And so if you had to pay them in 30 days, you could have an upside down negative cash flow. If you're receiving money from your clients, your customers in 90 days, but you're paying your vendors in 30 days, that's a negative cash flow, just those two components. And there's other things that affect your cash flow, like, debt service, debt payments that you don't see that on the income statement. That's not part of your profits. Purchase of assets or equipment, when you go purchase a piece of equipment, whatever, that's money out the door, but you don't see that, through your income statement or it's not part of your profits. So while profits are important and they are a part of determining cash flow is more critical to focus on first and foremost. So I always say focus on cash first, and then profits, and then revenues. So, back into it that way. Because cash is king, right? We always hear cash is king. And I've even heard it said, cash is king and there ain't no queen. And that's exactly right. But cash flow is a typical, or it's a difficult concept, I think, too, for a lot of business owners to understand. And if you just simplify it into, it's just the flow of money in and out of your business is what it is. But it can be positive and it can be negative. And, an example is you collect a payment from a customer of $100 and that's cash in of $100, right? And then you pay a vendor $50. Well, at the end of the day, you have a positive cash flow of $50. That's what cash flow is.
Right.
Yes. And so
hallelujah. I just got to say, we were talking about this a little off air, and I have a lot of clients who are, have been saying, like, I hear people a lot, all these people talking like, how are they making six figures and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but they're not. Like, they technically are, I guess. But again, it's how much is left at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
Like, sure, you can like run an event and charge $500 for a ticket, and sell 100 tickets or, 1,000 tickets and be like, look at me, right? But then you're in debt at the end of the day because you've spent more than what you've made, right? So it's that I find sometimes that I kind of go, look behind the curtain before you start having that FOMO feeling, because sometimes that ain't the truth.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So the system I created basically is designed to manage those 16 parts or drivers, if you will, of cash flow. And to me, these are the 16 drivers that you want to watch like a hawk to control your cash flow. Because to put it in context, I say this because, that like statistically, the SBA will tell you, that's Small Business Administration, will tell you, 50% of business owners go out of business within 5 years. And then if you ask, well, why is that? And it's because about 80% of those businesses that fail, they fail because they go out of money. They lose their money. They run out of cash, run out of money, run out of cash. And so cash flow has to be the number one focus. You have to be focused on the right things in your business. And from a financial perspective, it has to be cash flow.
Yeah. And I think it's so important for people to hear that and understand that, because I always compare it to like people winning the lottery, and then people go, well, I don't understand why everybody who wins the lottery like goes bankrupt. And I'm like, because if you don't know how to manage $100, $1 million ain't going to be any different. Like
That's exactly right.
It's like those people who go into the dollar store and go like, I can get 100 items. And I'm like, yeah, you can. Well, they're only $1. Well, still $100.
Right.
And you still spend $100, but they're $1 each. And I'm like, okay, and it's really understanding that and kind of that's kind of the topsy-turvy thing that sort of happens, right? Like I just had this conversation with a girlfriend and she was like, I just bought this purse and I saved up for so long for it. And I'm like really excited. It was this Coach bag or whatever. I don't know. I'm not into that or whatever. She was super excited about it and she was like, "Why aren't you more excited?" I'm like, "Listen, sweetie, like I know where you stand and I'm just telling you, if you can't put twice the amount of cash inside the purse you just bought, what the hell's the point of having that purse?" Right? Like
Right.
you just spent $3,000 on a bag that you
Hmm.
could pay, that you can't put any money into.
Hmm. Well,
So,
yes, I have learned a lot of people carry over into their business the way they think about money and manage money on a personal level
right,
is the same way they do it in business.
right.
And yes, and they get themselves in, I think, get themselves in trouble with that, right? Because, if you've got, obviously, if you've got more cash going out the door than you got coming in, you're in trouble.
Right. Or they say stuff like, I'm going to buy, to put it in business terms, I hear a lot like, I'm going to buy this piece of equipment. I don't quite have the money for it right now, but in 5 years, when I pay this loan
Hmm.
off, then I'm going to start making money with no
Hmm.
thought of those 5 years.
That's right. There should always be a return on investment for any money outlay that you spend, right? And you should know what that is. You should know what that value is that you're getting out of whatever it is you're purchasing at the time you're purchasing, or whatever it is you're investing in, any service or whatever, there's a value assigned
Mhm.
to it. And there should be a return on investment for every money that goes out the door.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we don't think of that, right? Because we do the fingers crossed thing. And
Hmm.
this comes a lot with, people who are hiring coaches, or consultants or whatever. They kind of go, well, I'm hoping this is going to work. And sometimes it's, tens of thousands of dollars. And you have to be in a position where you're willing to kind of take that chance. Because I've done it. I mean, I've
Hmm.
invested in people and at the end went, that was an utter waste
It's
of
just
that.
learning the hard way, right?
It was
It's just
learning the hard
learning.
way, but before I went into it, I made sure that it was disposable, that I
Hmm.
could
Yes.
comfortably kind of go, if I'm going to spend this amount of money and it all goes to crap and I get nothing from it, I'm not going to be desolate or I'm
You're
not going
going to
to
be
have to like
okay.
I'm going to be okay. And
Hmm.
kind of making that, that hard decision. And there's sometimes that I'm like, I really want to work with this person, but
Hmm.
financially, that's a lot of money to give out on a hope and a prayer.
That's exactly right. I mean, one of the things I do personally, and I've always done this in assessing, making a decision on whether I want to do it or not, is obviously assessing the risk. And my go-to is worst case scenario.
Right.
I try to think of what is the worst thing that can happen here, and can I afford that?
Right.
And if the answer is yes, then okay, then it's worth looking into. It's worth considering the decision I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
If I can't accept the worst case scenario, then I'm done with it. It's gone.
Yeah. Well, and I do the same thing, right? Is this something that, if it all goes away, I'm still okay with the fact that I don't have that money?
Hmm.
And how much time am I really going to give to this? Can I
Yes.
block off, especially if it's larger, if it's in the $10,000 range, or higher, am I going to be able to give the time actually needed? Because I think a lot of times people go, I'm going to have this person come in and they're going to fix everything and not realizing I have to do work.
You still have
I
to
have to
work,
help,
right?
right? And I'm sure
You
you get this a lot, in your industry too, though, where they're like, just come and fix everything. And it's like, but you have to learn how to do this,
I think
and
that's critical. Like when you're starting a business or you're in a business, the first thing you need to do is learn what you're good at and what you're not.
yeah.
You know, there are things in the business that you will naturally be good at, and you'll enjoy doing. And there's
Mhm.
going to be other things that you don't like doing, you're not good at, and you don't want to do. And you need to learn those. And you learn those by doing them, right? Or
Yeah.
seeing them. And for the things that you don't enjoy doing, you're not good at, or, hire experts, bring them in,
Yeah.
surround yourself with experts, use your resources. That's how you get ahead with, more freedom out of your business and less stress.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important too to remember that you have to know every single role, but you don't, my mom used to always say, you have to wear every hat, but you don't have to keep it on.
Right.
And that was like a key thing for me of going, yeah, I don't want to be one of those people who's completely out of touch and couldn't pick up a broom and know what needs to be swept or cleansed or whatever. I want to
Mhm.
know how to do everything, but I don't want to be doing everything. Like, I want to kind of go, hey, it would be fun to sweep the warehouse today as like just
Mhm.
something extra, right? To
Mhm.
know that. But I think where a lot of business owners get stuck is they go, okay, I want to be hands-on, but then they stay there, right? They keep the hat
Mhm.
on as opposed to going, oh, that wasn't fun here.
Right. And I think it's also important to make sure you're focused on the right things.
Right.
Just because you can do, 10 different things at one time doesn't mean you're focused on the right things. I had a CEO I worked with one time that told me, the worst thing you can do is, climb a ladder up the wall to just get to the top and realize I'm on the wrong wall. That has stuck with me ever since, because focusing on the right things or the important things are what helps your business be successful.
Yeah. And it's all, I find it's all those little weird things that happen in your life. Like you said, the CEO telling you those little nuggets that, stick
Mhm.
with us that sometimes we don't listen to. I remember my dad always saying like, just be nice. Be nice. He used to say that all the time in business as a boss, be nice. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like you keep saying that. And he goes, listen, I'll tell you something about being in the military that I learned. He was very high up in the military. And he said, I will never forget it. A major had said to me, you need to be nice because all those people you're stepping over up
Mhm.
the ladder are the same asses you got to kiss on the way down. And I
That's
was like,
right.
oh, that stuck. Right?
Right. I've got 2 daughters, and I've always told my employees, my kids, never burn bridges.
Yeah.
Never burn bridges. Always be respectful to people, because it's amazing in life how many times you circle around or come back to somebody that you never thought
Yeah.
you would encounter again, or even be working with, or you just never know.
Yeah.
It yeah.
And you want that too, right? Like, because we all kind of go, I am not that same person I was,
Exactly.
then. When I think of my 20-year-old self, when, I started my first business in 98. And when I think of that
Mhm.
person, I'm like, yeah, she does a lot of stuff that I absolutely positively would not do today.
Mhm.
But it comes from, learning. Sometimes it just comes from age and experience. I was a lot more daring back then of going, it's okay. I
Mhm.
got lots of time to make, if I make a mistake, I got lots of time to make more money. And now I'm a
Recover.
little more like, no,
Right,
I don't
right.
recover that quickly anymore.
Exactly right. I totally understand that. I think I tend to be, I don't know if it's a glutton for punishment or what, but I know, like, looking back on my business, the business encounters that I took on were great challenges. And I learned in a few instances after I took on the job, there was a lot of people before me that turned it down. And once I got in and started looking, I'm like, oh, well, this is why. It's just a huge overtaking or challenge or whatever. But I also learned that's what made me who I am, and that's what I enjoy doing. That's the I love the challenge. I love the thrill of, figuring it out, strategically getting them over that challenge, or, the company, or whatever it is. And but it is exhausting. I mean, it takes a toll on you for sure. But I think at some point too, you get a little bit good at it. Like, you get better at it, and so
I
it's
think you
not
get
as
I think you get better at
exhausting.
seeing it and
Yes.
understanding it. Like,
Yes.
you know, I always had a dream of opening up a retail craft store and I did it. And then 5 years in, I was like, God, I hate people. Like like customers. And I remember my husband going like, what? And I'm like, they just drive me nuts. Like, I don't understand how their intelligence gets left at the door. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, it's, and I was like, I think we need to close this business. And it was never anything I thought I would say. And it was no ill will to anybody. I was just like, I don't have that filter to be able to not, I don't have it in me anymore to kind of put my hand on my chest and say, well, bless your heart. Like, I was like, what are you, an
Mm-hmm.
idiot? Like, and I was like, ooh, maybe this is
Mm-hmm.
not for me anymore. And I think, a lot of times entrepreneurs, get stuck in that of, this is what I picked. I left the corporate world to do this. I have to do this now forever. And do you find sometimes that you will meet with clients and they've gotten so stuck into, I have to do this first thing that I started out with because that's why I left. Do you find sometimes that it can be just a simple pivot of going, you still get to do something, but maybe you're just not doing the right thing? You've kind of
Mm-hmm.
ventured off into all of these, you got starstruck by all of these other things that you're supposed to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to get back to basics, I guess.
Well, I think, for me, like I said, after 25 years of working in the corporate world, which I greatly enjoyed climbing that corporate ladder and all those challenges. But I think you have to remember, you always have choices,
Right.
and it's never over till it's over, right? And you can always pivot or make a change if it's, if you get to the point where you're not happy or you're miserable, you need to make a change. And you need to do it for just your personal well-being. um First and foremost, it's just not healthy, right,
Yeah.
to be miserable with what you're doing. And you can make a change, you can do it. And one of my sayings with my kids and my employees is, if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
Right. And if you make a choice and you go down a path and it's not right for you, it's not working out like you thought, well, evaluate it, reassess it. Is there some small changes you can make, in what you're doing? Maybe you're doing a part in your business. Like I just mentioned, you're working on marketing, which I have learned in my business, the marketing thing is not for me. Like, I don't want to do it.
Someone else
I
can
don't
do that.
halfway understand it. I'm not good at it. So yes, I have somebody else that handles all my marketing, social media, and all of it, because that's not for me. And that's not a good use of my time, right?
Mhm.
So you have to consider your time, and you want to spend your time on what matters the most, what benefits you the most, and where you add the best value. So whether it's a place in your business or the right business, whatever it is, that's where you want to be. You're
Yeah.
spending your time on the right thing and you're enjoying it.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. We kind of get stuck and feel, I've had a lot of people say, like, how do you just like, when I sold the craft store, they're like, how do you just walk away? And I'm like, but I'm done with it. Like, why
Mhm.
are people allowed to change jobs with never being questioned about it because it's something that's better for them or a greater opportunity comes up? But as an entrepreneur, I'm not allowed to do that. Like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up yet. And I've tried to instill that in my son of saying, you don't need to know what you want to be when you grow up. You need to know what you want to be right now, but you don't have to stick with that forever. You have to be smart about the decisions you make, and not like, I'm not saying to just, be
Mhm.
willy-nilly and jump around, but you don't have to stick with one thing and do it forever. Like, I can't even imagine if I was doing what I was doing when I first started out.
Right.
I love where it morphed to, and I find that through all of my experiences, I've taken something from each thing that I've done. And I've owned a lot of different businesses, retail, franchise, multi-level marketing. Like, there's always some lesson that has helped me for what I do right now. So, as long as you're smart about it. I'm not saying to just like quit your job and
Right. Well, yes, you definitely want to plan, but what you just described, when you reflect back, that it's that journey
yeah.
that you've been on and everything that came with it, right? All
Yeah.
the good, the bad. I mean, like I always say, there's never a bad experience in business, because you can learn from good or bad experiences. You
Yeah.
can take away from any experience if you look at it and look for it. There's something to be gained from all experiences. And it's that journey, and you look back and you think, wow, look what I've done. I've overcome this. I did this. I never thought I would do this. And here I am. And that
Yeah.
makes life exciting, right?
Well, and I always go, when you have a bad experience, it's okay to be upset about, but how can you make it funny? And even those
Right.
interactions when I was like, I can't stand customers anymore. Now they're really funny stories that I'll tell when we're
Hmm.
out. People will be like, tell me about like the weirdest client you've ever had or the weirdest
Hmm.
customer who's ever come in. And they're funny stories now because I didn't want to harbor, like you said, and turn it into, just a bad experience that I
Right.
was like, that was horrible. I never want to do it
Hmm.
again. Now I sort of laugh about it when I'm in a store and I see somebody acting like that. I laugh out loud because I'm like, man, I like it's okay. I'll kind of give that wink and that nod to the
Hmm.
retail person who's behind the counter and there's that, instant look of like, I get you. Like I know what you're
Hmm.
going through right now and it's okay.
That's right. You learn everything's going to be all right
Yeah.
after a
Keep
while,
this too will pass, I promise
right?
you. But within that experience, I also understand that I act differently now. I act differently when I'm out or when I experience those things. Whereas before, I would never speak up and say anything. I would let that interaction happen. And now I'm like, I know that person, behind that till can't say anything, but I sure as hell can. I mean, I just have that attitude where I was like, let's play because I'm not going to lose my job over it, right?
Right?
Where I can't do that. Sometimes I remember being behind the counter and going, there is something that I want to say, but I am not allowed to
Hmm.
say it because that would be wrong. But as a
Hmm.
customer, I'm like, I can say what I know that person really wants to say.
That's right. Well, to that point, I've learned with business owners to be honest with them. It's
Right.
not all about, covering over, the good and the bad or the bad, whatever. If there is some red flags there or there is some weaknesses there, bring them out. You've
Right.
got to be honest and open with that client. They can't, you can't fix something or work on something if you don't know it exists, right?
Hmm.
And
And
that I see that.
do you find that sometimes can be a struggle for you? Is that people try to not mention what's those sort of things that they're like, I just don't want anybody to know about this.
I think it's very easy. It's the easy way to, shove it under the rug or
Right.
kick the can down the road, whatever, hide the elephant in the room if that's what it is. I think that's the easier route to go. The better route to go is let's be honest with what we're dealing with here, right?
Right.
All the good and the bad, the weaknesses, the strengths, the red flags, the opportunities. Let's be honest about everything that's here. And
Right.
and sometimes what I find is if the business owner just doesn't know,
Right.
like they have no idea, and so I bring it out and I say, look here, let me show you what's happening. And they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Right.
And
Because you
that's what
weren't looking at
happens.
those reports.
That's right. And that's what happens. That's the first thing I do with a new client is I do a free financial assessment on their business because to me, that's the story of their business. And it tells me everything that's going on in their business. And then I can take that story and I show the client, I said, look here, here's what's happening. This is a huge red flag over here. You've got an opportunity you're missing over here, just whatever it is.
Right.
And I find a lot of times they're just like, they didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's
And
simple.
and I love that because I think, that's what a lot of people, that's what a lot of entrepreneurs want is, they have to understand, and I'm so glad that you said this, and I just want to reiterate what you said is that, money tells a story. Your
Mhm.
numbers tell a story without
Yes.
emotion.
Yes. That's
And
exactly
that's
right.
the story you need because as an entrepreneur, you can emotion away a lot of bad decisions
Right.
when
Well,
we
you
put
hear all the
feelings into
time.
it, right? But money and
Yes.
numbers are just kind of like, they say it as it is.
That's exactly right. It is what it is, right? And you hear it a lot of times to your point, people they make purchases based on emotion and then they justify it or reason with it
Right.
later, right?
Right. If I use this purse this many times, then it actually is. And I'm like, still $3,000 on a
Yeah.
freaking bag
It
to
still never
hold
pays
no
for itself.
to hold an empty wallet, but it retains its value. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
100% doesn't, but whatever.
That's
Don't
so
ask me
good.
for rent money next month. Live in
Right.
your bag. So let's talk a little bit about the people that you work with, because I know there's a lot of people who are listening right now who are like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not looking at that. I don't know how to look at that. Maybe there is that fear around it of, I'm scared, to look at it or to
Mhm.
admit that I don't know how. Who is it that is sort of your, like, who are you like, God, I'd love to get my hands on this type of client?
Mhm. I enjoy the most. What gives me the most satisfaction is when I can encourage or influence a client to say, "Hey, you know, come talk to me about your business. Come tell me about your business. I want to hear the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to hear what your goals, challenges are. Tell me about them." And then be willing to let me look at your financials. Just
Mm,
let me look at them and let me show you what I can do. I think the biggest holdback for small businesses is one of the reasons, for whatever reason, they're afraid to share their financial information.
yeah.
Oh, it's a mess. I've had clients, oh, it's a mess. It's not in order. You're not going to be able to do anything with it. That's not true. I can take a messy set of books and regardless of how messy it is, just knowing about your business and what you tell me, I can make it to where I can still read the story,
Yeah.
with what's there. So
I'm like, well, that's problem number one. So,
right. That's problem. Don't let that hold you back.
yeah.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Like you said in the very beginning of asking questions or asking for help. I think
Yeah.
the worst thing you can do as a business owner is to be struggling and not ask for help, or
Right.
not seek an expert in a certain area that you struggle with. And
Mhm.
those are the businesses that I like to get my hands on, as you say. And what I love the most is, and this is the most fulfilling and most satisfaction is, I actually show them, here's where you are today. Here's where we can be in 12 months from now, 1 year from now. We can add $300,000 to your bank balance, whatever it is, right? We can do this. And there is a proven, predictable system that we can follow to get you there. And they're like, okay, they get excited. Let's do it. And we do it 3 months into it. We're seeing improvement. They get so excited. They're so excited. And, we reach a goal. They're super excited. And it's not over when you reach a goal, because what happens when you reach a goal? You set new goals, right?
Yeah. Oftentimes before that one's even hit.
Right. So it never ends. It never ends. And that's the excitement to me, is to see we took action, we carried out the plan, we're getting results, and they're so excited. They're like, I never knew, so excited. And I love that. That's my fulfillment. That's my motivation, my, drive every day.
Yeah. And I think, I love that you said, like, it's not anything to be embarrassed about when sharing your financials, because it is just a part of the story that you're telling.
Mm-hmm.
And that oftentimes how do you know if you don't have somebody who's showing you? And oftentimes when we go into entrepreneurship, nobody shows us. So we get,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people who get stuck in that, and they go, well, I'm making good money. I'm
Mm-hmm.
bringing in those six figures that I'm telling everybody, but I don't know what's going on. I'm not keeping it. And I
Yeah,
don't
where's the cash?
know, like, there's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza.
Where's the money? Yes.
And, like, I know it's there, and I know the potential is there, but we kind of get stuck in this thing of going, but when I look at my financials, I'm bringing in all this money, but there's a negative at the bottom, and I don't want anybody to know that. And it's
Right.
important to get rid of that color that you don't like. You need
Yeah.
to have somebody, and I find that, and it's why I want to have more of these conversations, because people are willing to do it with so many other things, right? If
Mm-hmm.
our social media isn't working, we have no problem, opening it up and being like, look, here's where it is,
Right.
there's so many other situations, but when it comes to sharing that, I think that a lot of times business owners feel like, I'd rather stand in front of you naked than give you
Mm-hmm.
this statement.
Right. And or there's, for some reason, they feel like it's confidential, like
Right.
nobody can look at it. You know what? Okay. If you're going to think like that, then no, you won't get help, and you can't
Yeah.
get help. You have to be somewhat vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
And you have to put it out there. If you're struggling, put it out there with somebody who, knows what they're doing, the expert in that area, and get some help. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And I think it's true. We need to hear that more, that it's not about sharing it with everybody, but
Yeah.
like you said, find somebody who, like you, is skilled, who knows what they're doing, and who is looking at this confidential information, if you feel it's that way, to support you and to help you. That's the whole
Yes.
reason why you're sharing it. I'm not saying put it up on,
Yeah.
and I say that to people. I'm not going to put it up on social media, but I need
Right.
to know the whole story, and I need to know, the unemotional side of business as well.
And it should be a no-brainer in my mind. And I'm going to tell you why, because like I said before, whenever you're spending money on anything, investing in a service or purchasing something tangible, there should be some value to it. There should be a return on your investment. And in my situation, I can get on a call with a prospective client and I can say, look, here's what I can do. Here's the value I can add to your business. We can increase, like I said, increase your bank balance, 500,000 by the end of the year. And my fee is only a fraction of that, a small fraction of that. You keep the rest. It's a no-brainer. Why would you not do that?
Yeah.
In my mind, why would you not do that?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just, finding somebody who's like you, who's open and honest and going, this is what I'm going to do. This is where our goal is going to be. And being okay with saying, yeah, like this is an aspect that is not my forte. And I don't know how to do this. And it's okay to say that, because a lot of people, that's the very last thing that they ever think about when they start a business. Very last thing. And I know, because I call them shoebox. Shoe boxes, you get all the receipts and they're just jammed in the bottom. And they were like,
Right.
I didn't know I needed to look at that. I'm like, I
Yes.
know, it's okay. But that's why I'm here to help.
That's exactly right. And that's what I do. And that's what I enjoy doing. And I'm good at it. I've always done a good job for my clients. And if I ever run into an issue or problem or something I don't know, I have resources. I know how to lean on resources, or I will figure it out, because I am so challenge driven. I will figure it out.
Yeah.
So
where is the best place for, someone sitting there and they're like, okay, I know I need help in this. It is, I'm going to stretch my capacity for letting people into this. Where's the best place for them to go and, kind of experience you, learn a little bit more about everything that you offer?
Yes. So I have a website, and it's Higher Up CFO Services. And that's higher as in higher profits and higher cash flow. HIGHER. I have to say that because people type in HIRE and that's not right. So higher up CFO Services. So that's my website. If you go to the website, I do have a page. It's a learning center.
Okay.
And for example, on there, I have listed out the 16 drivers that drive your cash flow. If you want to know, there's 5 that drive revenue, 5 that drive profit, and there's another 6 that drive just cash flow. But they all work together. And that's the system that I've created in working with clients. Very successful. I also have you can book a call with me. And if you're interested, I have a tool that I'll be willing to share with you to help you manage your cash flow, that we can get on a call and I can show you briefly how it works, and you can take the tool. I also have a quick little 10-slide show of my process in working with clients, which is just a 6-step process is all it is. But I've tried to make it, the system and this process, like I said, accessible and affordable. It's affordable to small businesses. So if you're a small business owner and you think this all sounds great, but I can't afford it, you're wrong. And I can prove you wrong.
So there you go. If you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, I can only imagine how much this is going to cost me. Don't say that, because that's where people get stopped the most.
That's right. I've already thought of that, and you're going to lose that argument, and I'll prove it.
That's a fun one to do, right? Let me show you how you can afford me.
Yes.
Hand me over those financials and I'll tell you those things that you're not looking at. Well, we're going to make sure that, we have that. And I really want to encourage people that even if you are still sitting there and you're in that feeling, because I know we have some listeners who are like, man, I don't have an extra penny to spare. Like I feel like I'm behind the eight ball. Then I encourage you to just go to the website, because there's a lot of information that you can just sort of take from there to get yourself to a little bit more comfortable with it and understand, some of those 16 drivers. I think there's a lot that are going to be like, the little light bulbs that are going to go off in people's heads. And then from there, I encourage you, to book a call and try some other stuff and actually work with Teresa, because those few little things that you're going to learn off of that website are going to make such a difference to you. Imagine if she was actually the one driving those changes. So, Teresa, thank you so much for, sitting down with us, being really open and easy terms about this, sort of demystifying it and allowing people, that permission to, kind of
Yes.
go, I don't know, I need help.
And it's okay. That's okay. That's great. If you can say that, that's great. And
Hardest words to say.
I know, right? I've greatly enjoyed visiting with you, and I appreciate you having me on the show for sure.
So we're going to have all of the links in the show notes of where you can go and check out Teresa, all the stuff that she talked about today. So make sure that you head there, check them out, follow her also on social media, show her some love, and make sure that you message her. Let her know, comment at the bottom of this episode. What was the one thing that you took away? What was one of those 16 drivers that I know you're going to head to the website? Which one was your favorite? We want to hear about it. So thank you, Foxy listeners, for tuning in today. Thank you, Teresa, again, for sharing time. I can't wait to have you back on the show.
Awesome. That'd be great. Thank you.
Such a great conversation and such an important one. As I said at the beginning of the episode, talking about numbers isn't something that a lot of people are like me or Teresa who get really excited about it. But I promise you that every single number that you have in your business, whether it is from your address, the first dollar you make, or how much inventory you have, is telling you a story. But there's no reason that you should feel that you need to know exactly how to read that language. It is a different mindset. So it is okay, and you should be okay. And I encourage you to ask for help on how to understand that, whether that's from the person who does your bookkeeping, to your accountant, to whoever it is. Even if you just have somebody who's doing your accounts receivable and payable, if they are really skilled in this, because hopefully that's all you've hired is people who are skilled in this, be okay with saying, hey, can you explain this to me? How would you describe this? What story are my numbers telling you? And it could be as simple as that. Get their opinion on what it is that they're seeing, and then assess it and look at it with a new pair of eyes, because there always is a story there. And I really do want to encourage you again to head to Teresa's website. We are going to have the link in all of the show notes, because those 16 drivers, there is going to be at least one thing that you're going to be like, ooh, I never even thought of that. That's a good idea. So I had a lot of fun looking through them too. And there was a few things that even I was like, oh yeah, right? Those things that ring a bell. So what I want to challenge you with is to sit down, to look at your numbers, and to kind of take a moment to go, where is it that I can take a step back? Where is it that I can sort of take a moment to look at this and kind of go, what story is it telling? What story do I want it to tell? And how is it that I can get there? Or if you want something even simpler, I want you to look for a way in your numbers that you can save $100. That's it. Just $100. So where is it that you can start doing that? If you can start flexing that muscle, you'll be amazed when you start looking at all of the places that all of a sudden you can start saving money. And if you want more help finding those areas, reach out to Teresa, reach out to me, reach out to somebody that you trust and go, hey, can you help me find this $100? And from there, we just keep going and snowballing. It's amazing what you can find. So I hope you really liked this episode. Please, I encourage you, to share this episode on your social media. That helps us get the word out. Leave us a comment, leave us a thumbs up, leave us a heart, whatever it is that you enjoyed about the show. We want to hear about it. So send us a comment. If you have a question, DM us, send a comment, and we'll make sure that you get the answer it is that you need. And all it's going to cost you is the time it takes you to write the comment. So no matter what it is that you're doing today, whether you're finding savings on $100, whether you are totally revamping and figuring out how to read that story, make sure that you take time to have fun. Because as I always say, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?